Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful Monday. Hopefully, you guys have had a great start to your week, or it may already be well into Tuesday, depending on where it is that you may be joining us from in the world. But wherever it is that you are, thank you as always for making My EdTech Life what it is today. As you know, we do what we do for you so we can bring you some amazing shows, amazing guests and amazing conversations more than anything, so that way we can go ahead and continue to grow within our education space. And today I'm really excited because we definitely have a great conversation with Alex Hassan that's coming up, and we're going to be talking about AI and bridging tech and teaching. And I was just really thrilled to be able to get him on the show today. And we're going to be talking about the amazing work that he is doing with his platform. And I won't get too much into that just yet. That way we'll let Alex get into it. But before we get into our conversation, as always, I want to thank our sponsor. Huge shout out to Goose Chase for sponsoring My EdTech Life. So all of you that are interested, please visit goosechase.com if you're interested in making your classroom more interactive and just a platform to create amazing learning experiences where students are actively moving around and actively learning. Definitely check out Goose Chase, and you can use code MyEdTech10 so you can take 10% off your district plan or your school plan or even your personal plan. So big shout out to Goose Chase. Thank you so much for sponsoring My EdTech Life. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about AI. And today I have an amazing guest, Alex Hassan, who is joining us today. Alex, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to get started.
Excellent. Well, I'm thrilled. I know we talked a little bit about it this pre-chat, and I'm just really excited to get the conversation going and learning a little bit more about Judie AI and the work that you're doing. But before we do that, Alex, as you know, and maybe you're familiar with the show a little bit, maybe not, but I always love to introduce my guests as kind of action heroes because they are people that are doing some amazing things within the education space. And of course, I liken them to superheroes because of the work that they do. And as we all know, every superhero has an origin story. So,
Yeah.
Alex, can you give us a little brief introduction? And if you can just share with our audience members just a little bit of your background that led you up into this amazing platform and amazing project that you have brought to fruition, which is Judie AI.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is actually in biochemistry, and so my largest passion in life is science. If I could do one thing right now in this world, I would be in a lab, studying, and I love genetics. But to support myself, because there's not a whole lot of money in that, all the way through undergrad and graduate school, I worked as a private tutor, in New York City and in Los Angeles. And one of the things that was very clear to me is that obviously most of my students were people of means. Their parents were pretty significant means, and you know, as someone who didn't grow up with those particular means, it was kind of like a disparity that stuck out to me. My time working there, and I wanted to find a way to kind of bridge tech, which I'm a big tech nerd. I don't miss an iPhone launch or anything like that. I wanted to bridge kind of that world of emerging technology and kind of bring that access and accessibility that I saw so firsthand was lacking. In my background, I've worked, I think, for all three of the largest education companies in the United States, and being super hands-on there with curriculum. And it was so clear to me that accessibility is something that's deeply missing in education today, especially on the technology side. And so, maybe a year or two ago, when you started to see generative AI really start to pop up, I think even before ChatGPT, that was such like a light bulb for me of like, hey, that is something that not only improves capability, but deeply, deeply improves accessibility. And so I got to work, diving headfirst into that and seeing like how do we bring those opportunities to every kid, and so that's how Judie started. It originally started focusing on standardized tests, and it just kind of grew from there, to include now about 135 subjects, across all kind of like all the way from elementary school to the bar exam. Um, so that no matter what you're studying or what you're trying to learn, you're not limited by what your means are. And everybody could have an expert tutor in their pocket. So that's Judie's origin story.
Wow, that is amazing. And what I love is, again, with as many guests that I've brought on, and that are founders and there are creators and that have this vision, it's just amazing just to see and hear things from their perception as they build these amazing platforms that are here to help and help strengthen, our education system. And like you mentioned, provide access to those that may not have access. And so that's something that we talked a little bit about. And so I'm just really excited to dive in a little bit more as far as, we talked a little bit about how that inspiration came about, which is through tutorials and tutoring. So,
Mhm.
Alex, tell me a little bit about your personal experience, working as a tutor. And then, of course, how that led you up to, again, creating Judie AI. Was there something, that really you just said, aha, like here's that light bulb moment. This is what we can do and how we can provide access. Walk me through that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I made something a living being a student. I've taken every standardized test there is, I think, basically in the United States, from the SAT to like the T's and the MCAT, to be able to tutor them. And so I was originally supposed to go to medical school. So I remember my experiences being an MCAT student and the disparity between my friends who could afford to spend $300 or $400 an hour on an MCAT tutor versus me kind of studying with used books, like, and for lack of a better phrasing, like how much that sucked, seeing that and what I had access to, and how much harder I had to work to kind of even that gap. And many, many years later, I was fortunate enough to be in LA, to be in a position where I could kind of work pro bono as a tutor. And so I saw here firsthand what a lot of students were working with, and what they had access to in terms of material. But not only that, how much they flourished once they had someone to come in and help them and break things down for them in a way that a YouTube video or a textbook just cannot. Because no matter what, you can never beat one-on-one instruction. I think there's pretty heavy research into that. Like the one-on-one instruction model is it's always going to lead to better results. And so it got to the point where I was kind of doing that free tutoring, and of course they, can I bring my friends? And my friends need help too. And then you'll reach a point where I just didn't have the bandwidth to work with more than 30 or 40 students at a time and still sleep. And so I started playing with, I think it was GPT-3, to start, try and build some kind of very basic interface where people could just ask their questions and I could see them, because at the time, you have problems with hallucinations in AI. So I still had to be hands-on. But over time, I saw it getting better, especially with GPT 3.5 or ChatGPT and some of the things Anthropic was coming out with. I saw it getting better, especially with things like logic. And that to me was the real moment where I had it teaching a student basically the LSAT or building a curriculum, which the LSAT, and I don't know how much you and your viewers are familiar with, it's very, very heavy on logic and critical thinking and not so much memorization of like facts like the MCAT is. So once I saw AI starting to not necessarily excel, but not, it would score better than the average student, I was like, okay, there's something here. Like, how do we start to eliminate those hallucinations? This is feasible, because no one wants to hire a tutor that's right 70% of the time, right? Like, especially I think what I found in those early days was because it was so well spoken, students would trust it. How many times I think, do you second guess your calculator? Right. That was like, it was saying things and then students would accept it as fact. And I'd be like, hold on. Like, that back up, that the rest of it was correct, but that one piece. And, once I had some success working with a couple of my friends who were software engineers and data scientists, starting to eliminate those hallucinations entirely, that was the moment where I was like, okay, let's bring this to a school. And so here we are.
Wow, and I love that experience. And I want to highlight something because something really resonates with me in the fact that through your tutoring experience, you mentioned obviously you're working, one-on-one, and of course that model is great. But you said, it's not sustainable because then at the time you said, hey, your clients were coming in and saying, hey, can I bring my friends? And then you mentioned, there's no way that you could have kept up with 30, 40 students that you're tutoring at the same time. And of course, each one needs specific or has specific needs or supports that they may need. They're not all on the same page. So I mean, that really describes really what is happening within classrooms. You have got 30 customers that you have to sell your content to, and not everybody's going to buy it the exact same way, and not everybody may need those specific supports. And so, like, one of the things that I want to highlight is I was like, that sounds very much like what we're seeing today. And then, of course, you thinking like, hey, there's got to be a better solution. There's got to be something that we can do. And of course, leveraging the tech. And that's the thing that I love about, getting into this conversation, talking about trying to bridge that tech and teaching, being able to provide that support to the students, that just in time support that they may need. But like you mentioned, also with the responsibility that, of course, the answers that they are getting and the help and support that they're getting will be 100% right. Because you're absolutely correct in saying nobody's going to hire somebody if they're 70% right all the time,
Yeah.
or I should say 70% right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
That's still an issue there. So now that you had that experience, Alex, how does Judie AI embody your vision of making education accessible and intuitive?
Yeah. So, you know, step one was eliminating hallucinations and making sure we don't get things wrong. Step two was putting a methodology onto it. For me as a student, and from my time working as a tutor, I'm sure I've tutored got to be thousands of students, in my life myself. Structure is one of the most important things, and teaching methodologies, and so collaborating with some of the best kind of curriculum developers in the country, and feeding into the AI what the most up-to-date kind of research is into how do students learn the best, was step two. I don't think in this day and age, like with everything so digital, like it's feasible to expect students to come to a tutor with questions. I don't think that's the best way to make tutoring or any kind of supplemental instruction impactful, because a lot of times people don't know what they need help in. They just say, like, when I used to go to students, they'd be like, I'm stuck. Like, well, stuck where? So getting the AI to understand where students are lacking, or maybe there's just one little piece of the puzzle that's missing, was what we did next, and kind of feeding into it a curriculum. And I think I can give you kind of an example. To me, I told you my love is science, and I think you hear one of the most common things, in science is organic chemistry is hard. But what I found working, one-on-one as an organic chemistry tutor is that a lot of the time students aren't struggling with organic chemistry; they're struggling with chemistry 1. But they don't get a chemistry 1 tutor; they get an organic chemistry tutor. But they're missing that foundation. And so getting the AI to not only fill in those gaps, but foster critical thinking and connecting the dots between different, connected pieces of learning, we found to be very impactful in student success. So if you're struggling with a topic, the AI will look at that and say, are you really struggling with that topic, or are you missing something that's necessary to understand this, right? And kind of be an all-in-one education solution. But like I said, tie that into making us better humans, I think, is something like one of my favorite things about AI is that it's consistent for the most part. If you train it that way, right? I know that there's AIs out there that kind of go nuts, but we did our best to make ours very, very consistent in how it approaches students, right? And so fostering in students a love of learning and a love, like a desire to think beyond just, oh, let me memorize this chapter so I can do well, connecting it to their careers, connecting it to their interests and how they learn. Again, because if you think about it, like if you were a tutor for organic chemistry, most of the students don't want to be there. They're there because their parents, their professor told them they needed to be. Well, how do you flip that narrative? For me, I love learning. I spend every night either talking to Judie or going on Wikipedia or textbook, like little cycles, right? I love to learn. I love to absorb stuff. How do we translate that to students and cross that gap? I think is something necessary if we want to see foundational changes in how our country handles education. It starts with the students. How do they approach it? So
Absolutely. And the way that you broke that down is really actually just, great teacher practice. Many times it's we're trying to we're giving that content and we immediately just want to solve the problem and just give the solution many times because to be honest with you, I mean, you've got 30 students in front of you, and many times
mhm,
it's just like, hey, look, let me just give you the answer. Let me give you the way that to do it without
sure.
allowing the students to actually learn, to actually go through that learning process and experience the learning themselves, whether they're having some discourse within class, whether working independently and so on, because obviously there's a curriculum, there's a deadline, there's a timeline, there's all sorts of things that need to be met by a certain time. But
Mhm,
I love the way that you explained this in a very eloquently, and to me, it was just like, yes, this is a great message, to be able to see and use and leverage the technology in a way that you mentioned. Let's get to the root of the problem, not just this particular problem that we have in front of us, but what did we miss prior to that to be able to get to a solution here. So I'm just going to share a story that happened last year, and of course we know that AI was very forward facing, the algorithms and so on, and that scared a lot of people. But one of the things that I talked to teachers about, saying, "Hey, you guys never thought twice about, Siri. You guys never thought twice about spell check and your text predictors and so on." And I say, "And you guys never thought twice about the platforms that we have within our district." And so a lot of those platforms, there's a diagnostic test, and then of course based on how that is, it's meant to help close some of those gaps that may be available. So I always share this story because it kind of puts things into perspective too, where there's a ninth grade teacher. They're using a particular math program that is very much prescriptive based on the students input, how they're doing, how their practice goes. So she gave a diagnostic test, ninth grade student, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, she calls me up saying, Mr. Mendoza, I think that this program is not working correctly and I think that it's broken. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, I have a ninth grade student that's getting fourth grade material.
yeah,
And I said, well, I mean, believe it or not, there are some ninth grade students that still have some of those gaps. And so the program was meant to do that. We're keeping them where at level, but
yeah.
still being able to close that gap and some of those skills that they did not get or gain. So uh, that's where I kind of liken what you were talking about as far as Judy and being able to find, that the roots of not being able to get that answer in such a way that it makes it fun, I guess, or makes it very captivating, or creates that learning experience to go deeper and
Yeah,
make that connection. And I think that's so important that we miss out on.
absolutely. Because to me, like when I see students like the one you just brought up in your example, like when you were that student in ninth grade operating at a fourth grade math level, to you it feels like everything's snowballing. It feels like you cannot catch up. And so what happens a lot of the time is they just kind of give up, and it's hard for them to progress past that level. And so that was, we wanted to make sure that the AI could reach students, or engage them to say like, hey, like this is um, like the impact of what you're learning. Like for me, being in school, like there were some classes, if I'm honest, I just kind of didn't pay attention because I didn't see how they would impact me. And I think that's something a lot of people probably can resonate with. Like, for me, it was like, things like journalism or public speaking. I'm never going to be a public speaker. I'm not that guy. But now, I'm 26 years old. It was a skill that I needed that I missed out on. That you have to play catch up. And if I could go back to 15, 16-year-old me not paying attention in that class, I would want to reach me and tell me like, hey, like this is how this opens doors for you in life, right? Like this is how this translates into your version of success, which is something that we've built in. We had a friend of ours that was using our program who was struggling to reach his son in math, right? And said like, what are you interested in? Well, video games. Well, video game development is just math and it's just physics, but you don't like studying those subjects, but you like what they translate into. So you can turn these things that maybe you're not engaged with into things that, oh, okay, actually I do enjoy that. And I think once you have that string and you just pull on it, education barriers just kind of fall away.
Absolutely. I love that. So, just to elaborate a little bit more, because I mean, we're talking about, just that personalized aspect that
Mhm.
Judie has to offer. I mean, and what I loved is when I first came in from business, I'm actually coming in from business into education. And what helped me was my knowledge in marketing, because that's what I have a degree in marketing. And then
Yeah.
I got into education, and of course, personalized learning. It's like I've got 30 customers that I have to sell algebra to, because I was an algebra teacher coming in. And so they said, well, you have enough hours to be a math teacher, so we're going to go ahead and put you in algebra. Luckily, those skills were very transferable. Coming into the classroom, and we're talking about how we can leverage the tech, what we have available now, to also personalize that learning. But I want to ask you too, as far as Judie's approach towards inclusive learning. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
For you know I think Judie is designed to adapt to each student across like about around 170 variables and to test things, right? And so as the student is learning, Judie is learning about the student and how to best help them. You know, um, and you can go there with surface level things like, do they like to read learning? Do they like to hear learning? Do they like to watch videos? Do they need diagrams? And you can kind of present things. Um, and so with regards to that, I would say as of today in October 2023, Judie performs as well as an expert level human tutor and trying to reach students kind of at all levels, at all learning styles, at all personality styles, um, to and I think that's one of the basic strengths of AI is it's very adaptive. It can adapt instantly versus a human has to sit there and think, how do I reach this student? Is something my mom is actually a teacher of many, many decades. And that's something I would see her kind of pull her hair out at night is, like she might have a class of 30 students, but just one she's trying to reach. And then her class not inclusive because she's not reaching everybody. But she got to sit there and think the AI can look at those variables and make an instant decision and say, hey, maybe we should try A. And then the AI can sit there and say, okay, A didn't work. Let's switch to B, all in kind of the blink of an eye within a conversation. And so, to that, the student, is benefiting much quicker. And we can actually pass that information along to the teacher. So whatever the AI is learning about the student can say, hey, student X is learning this way, or they're missing here, can pass that along to their teacher, at scale and say, you have 2 or 3 students in your class that while they're performing well, it seems like they're missing some foundational concepts, and maybe assign them some work here to not only make the student's life easier, but to help them in the classroom and to help save the teacher some time and some heartache. Because I know, like, someone who is a teacher today, cares about and loves their students and wants to see every single one of their students, be the best version of themselves they can be. And so that was one of, again, the things that we wanted to kind of pass through is it's not just helping students in home, it's helping them in the classroom as well by translating that data into helping the teachers.
Perfect. And that kind of brings me up to my next question, because obviously one of the things that I always want to ask, and when I get the opportunity to speak to platforms and being in the position that I'm in within a district, there are certain things that we need to look out for that a platform offers. And one of those is, you were talking about it briefly right now, but I would love to get a little bit in deeper as far as that data component, how the students, based on their performance within Judie, get that, of course, that reporting feedback. And you mentioned getting it to the teacher. So tell us a little bit about that, as far as if anybody's curious and say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about Judie, but what kind of data would I be able to get from the program to help me, make those decisions, or, see how else I may be able to reach the student and make sure that they have the appropriate learning experience that they need, or the appropriate supports?
Absolutely. So I think everything that I've mentioned so far, learning styles, foundational concepts, where the student or the class sits within standards, we kind of take an a la carte approach, because obviously data, especially dealing with students, is not an area you want to mess around in. And so we partner very directly with the schools to see what their pain points are, what data they want, and we pass that along to them, either at the school level or at the classroom level, depending also on what the teachers are comfortable with, because the teachers, I think, are our most important stakeholder in collaborating with them. And so what would happen is a teacher would come to us and say, hey, this is my pain point in my classroom. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And we would basically build a mini version of Judie around them. And that's what I think is, so interesting about what we're doing is, coming from an outside perspective, you would look at this and see one AI model. But in reality, each school is running their own custom version of Judie. Each classroom, each student has their own custom version of Judie that's reporting back exactly what they need. And we make everything conversational. And so a teacher doesn't have to go through, a CSV or a JSON full of data and try and parse through all of these metrics. We make it so that the teacher, the superintendent, the student, the parent can just reach out to Judie and say, hey, I'm wondering why my child is struggling with Algebra 2. Could you catch me up on their progress, where you think they're missing concepts, and recommend some assignments, some activities, something that I can do to help them catch up? And so making that, I think, making that all conversational. And, I think one of my favorite parts about Judie is that you can actually ask Judie what data she can give you, right? It's that like Judie kind of, while not sentient, like we fed it kind of its capabilities. And so a teacher could ask it like, hey, exactly what can you do for me? And if it's something like, if we have a teacher that wants something that we don't offer, we do our best, kind of in a timely manner, provide that for them and make it do that. And that's actually how Judie was built. Judie started very small, and we took this teacher-centric approach where we took our MVP product to teachers and said, what would you do with this? And we built around that, what the teachers asked for, what the schools asked for, so that we didn't build anything useless, right?
Absolutely.
Every single one of our features, every inch of our site, before it's gone live, a teacher at school has seen it and told us how this impacts their day. And that's, kind of our company mission going forward, and making relevant product.
Wow, that is awesome. And I think that is so important, Alex, that, for companies that really go out and seek that teacher feedback, and really communicate with stakeholders, which, you've mentioned before, just the importance of really communicating with all stakeholders. And that should be everybody, obviously from the superintendent all the way down to teachers, students, and even parents. So I want to ask you, as far as working with stakeholders and, of course, your experience within some school districts that you're currently working with. But I want to ask a little bit, through your lens, because you're out there on the field, you're getting, feedback. But I want to get your, response to what are the thoughts that parents have right now, with this technology, with their, children using it within the school. I would love to get some feedback from that.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I think I was just talking with somebody about, like, if you read the news, you would think it would be overwhelmingly negative. The negative voices right now, I think, are very loud. I personally have pitched, Judie to education stakeholders at least a couple thousand times. I could do it with my eyes closed. I've never had really, I think, a negative response to the AI. Most of the concerns, I think, around, do we store data? You get through initially, you get those Terminator questions. Is this going to take over the world? What are the safeguards? But I think as AI has become kind of ubiquitous in our daily lives, and people are realizing that this is not something new, that this is, like you said, it's, on your Siri, on your Google Assistant, it's all around you. When you send a text, Apple is using AI to suggest what the next word is. I think we've seen those fears decrease a lot. And I think a lot of parents look at this as an enabler rather than as some dangerous technology. So that would be kind of, I think, my read. Assuming I'm not just speaking to a whole bunch of polite parents, like, but yeah, like I think a lot of parents look at this and say, like, well, I couldn't afford $40 or $50, $60 an hour to help my student. This is something that opens doors, because every parent wants their student to succeed and reach beyond what the parent did in their lifetime. And something like AI, whether it's Judie or even ChatGPT or Anthropic, that opens doors for their kid. I think they just want to make sure that whatever they're accessing does have safeguards in place, because of course kids like to misuse things and push boundaries and barriers. And so just, when we put in third-party data audits, and we're able to prove to parents, like, we're not collecting data, we're not advertising based on your kid, we're not building something nefarious, and we have safeguards in place to keep you and the teachers informed. That ended a lot of those fear conversations, if you will.
Excellent. That's good to know. Obviously, here, at least where I'm currently working, we don't get too much feedback from parents yet. I mean, we're still working on a plan and rolling things out. And honestly, I think we're a bit behind, but we're getting there. I mean, a start is a start. Moving forward is still, moving forward, whether it's slow or fast. But, and I'm just curious because obviously those questions do come up. And like you said, I think that at the very beginning, it was just huge. Just that fear of that's it. We're not going to need teachers anymore. The kids are going to have robots. They're going to have, and then we see obviously, like for myself, it's really you have that personal assistant, as an educator, as a teacher, and even myself in my current role. And I'm sure you mentioned, you play with it and work. Well, actually play with it and work with it for hours as well, refining the platform and adding more to Judie. So as far as adding more to Judie, I want to ask, as far as your platform for our audience members that are listening, is there access or international access to Judie as far as not just within the US, but is this open to other countries as well?
Absolutely. Right now, Judie will instruct, I said it's 135 subjects in 75 languages. I'm the son of immigrants. And so that was one of the first things we made sure. My dad had to come to the United States to get to the education that he wanted. And it's sad that someone has to leave their home to feel like they have to increase their options. And that's something that I would very much like our program to eliminate. Like if we can reach kids anywhere and everywhere, and promote expert level instruction, I think that would be, I think it would be a job well done, if we were able to do that. So,
Absolutely. And that was actually, and the reason I asked that is because several months back, of course, when everything was coming out, November, December, I had a Stefan Bouchard on the show, and he was mentioning, 'cause they had written a book, but he getting in contact with educators from other countries, stating like, hey, I mean, this is something that would be huge because of the number of students and the very few number of teachers and educators that are around, and this can help turn that around, be able to leverage the technology to essentially, you're multiplying yourself as a teacher to be able to create a learning experience, create an environment where a student can get the education that they need, whether it's even just the basic skills or, of course, advanced skills. And so I think that this is wonderful. Like you were mentioning, obviously, having to leave your country to find an education that you are really highly seeking is very difficult. But the fact that you're learning from that, learning from what your father went through and saying, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. We can go ahead and make this available to other countries. I think that that is something that is wonderful, very thoughtful, and obviously it's something that can be very helpful to all those countries that you do serve. So I applaud you for that and thinking about those things as well. So I want to ask you too, Alex, on as far as maybe a little bit on the business side, or as far as Judie, the platform, what have been, or maybe some of the hurdles that you can name, one or maybe two, some hurdles that you've had to overcome from since the inception of Judie, whether it was school, whether it was parents, or
Mhm.
whatever you'd like to share, because obviously it's something that we all need to know, that as good as the platform can be, the road is not always easy. So if you can tell us
Yeah,
just a little bit about that and just how you overcame those hurdles.
absolutely. I think the first one that came to mind is kind of funny. I was actually just talking myself to Stefan about this one, a couple days ago. You know, I think within the AI space right now, just because it's so like it's lucrative and a lot of people are very, very excited about it. I think there's a lot of education products out there, um, that don't solve a lot of, I don't want to say flaws, but maybe like, current shortcomings of AI models. They still hallucinate, but they're presented as, being kind of all-in-one tools. And I think a lot of the schools that we speak to have used those products where we're kind of promised things and then found out that no, these things, that this product still does hallucinate. And I think then they write off AI as not there yet, and then for us, I think the hump becomes much greater to show them, no, we don't hallucinate, like we are right 100% of the time. We have safeguards. And that has been one of the, I think a lot of the school stakeholders that I talk to feel like maybe hazy on AI because they're not sure. They get so many pitches. I think with AI, you see so many products, especially now in the last 2-3 months, from AI companies that can't yet fulfill their promise because the models themselves aren't quite there yet, and you have to do more. But I think in kind of the current funding environment, at least out here on the West Coast, there's not really a drive to do more. I think a lot of times just saying AI is enough. And that's been like, trying to get across to schools that, we are, every single partner, every single employee at Judie is extremely dedicated to, the cause, if you will, and improving accessibility of education and showing them that we are trying to build very strongly a community around this and support our teachers and develop teachers for features, develop features for teachers and develop features for students around them. And that we're not just trying to sell them something and then leave, has been kind of, I think not necessarily a struggle, but it's definitely gotten harder as more AI products have come out. I think a lot. I think it was much easier in June. Now I find since the school year started, since August, September, a lot of our clients have reached out to me, told me other companies have reached out to them and they've gotten burned. They feel like they don't trust a lot of the AI companies, which is sad because I know that, I speak to a couple of AI EdTech founders who have expressed kind of similar things to me where like, we do care and we are trying to make things better. It's gone, I think, to the point where it's some schools, because they were burned by other kind of products out there, they didn't deliver on the metrics. We've actually just kind of given them our product for free to show them like, look, we actually care about your students. You're not just like a client or like an invoice to us. And I see that getting harder lately.
Yes, no, I agree. And, that what you just mentioned at the very last sentence that you're not just an invoice. I think that's something that a lot of companies need to understand, that mainly getting that feedback, obviously, when you overpromise and underdeliver really leaves a bad taste, especially in a school district's mouth. I mean, they're hoping for something that they don't get, but the fact that, you take that feedback and say, hey, you're not just an invoice. Like, we're really here. This is our mission. Our mission is to really take this to the next level and help your students. I think that speaks volumes, and it's a great way to redeem yourself, but it's a great way for even the district to say, hey, like, they stuck it through. Like, we gave it to them. We said we spoke our piece. We were very upset, but the fact that you listened, I think that is so important. And you're absolutely right as far as the aspect of many platforms that are out there. And a lot of times, many platforms are doing very similar things, very differently, or it may look different, but you're absolutely right where they are still not quite at 100%. And I know one of the big things is, especially that sometimes I really need to look at too, as well as, as far as, the standards, in Texas, they have very specific standards. I'm sure that in other states, they've got very specific standards. So I know that I've talked to a couple of founders, and that's one of the things that they are still currently working on or trying to get better as far as producing things that are standards aligned for that specific state, i.e. Texas. That's one of the biggest things there. And so those are some of the things that they go through. And obviously, if you don't have, something that mentions those Texas standards here for Texas, there's no way that you can get your foot in the door no matter what, because that's the first thing that they're going to ask. So, yeah.
I think what's interesting to us, because like, I think in my position now, I'm not sure if mentor, like I have like a lot of like, I think AI EdTech CEOs like kind of reach out to me as kind of like a sounding board. And it's interesting to me that you bring up standards, because that's actually one of the first things that we did when we were building this out is like, I think, to me, that speaks to, I think more education, like technology focused CEOs need to begin their product development cycle actually talking to the superintendents. Because if you approach a superintendent or a principal, a teacher, standards are one of the first things that they will tell you. And I see a lot of companies build out fancy features like, oh, here's, like a crazy lesson planning activity that's super creative, but they're not aligned with standards. Like, you have to get the basics down first into the model, where when we walk into a room with a district or a school, it's a given that we're standards aligned. And then beyond that, we're school goal aligned. Like again, like when, if you speak and you bring your product or your idea or your MVP to a school, one of the first things they'll tell you is like, in addition to the school to the state standards rather, my school has goals. I want to increase AP enrollment. I want more of my AP students to receive college credit for this. Can your product do this? Instead of like building features first, right? And so, if there's any, I think anybody wanting to build an AI ed tech product out there, that would be, I think, my advice to them is, before you really build anything beyond an MVP, bring it first to a school.
Mhm.
Ask them how they would use it or what they need before you begin kind of that in, because it's hard once you've fully developed a product to then add more things into it, especially foundational things.
Yeah.
So
I
I totally agree with you. Regardless of where you sit on standards, as of today, they are important.
Absolutely. And there's countless of companies that I talk to, that call me up because I do consulting on the side, and they're always curious, like, hey, we're starting this. Like, what do you see? Can you try this out? And so on. I say, well, look, easily is just, I don't see the standards. And although, like you mentioned, some of those features are great. And I know that the spin is, well, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just kind of get this done, and then you're going to
Yeah.
align it to the standards, so but it's like, okay, you gave me the activity, but I still need to go ahead and rewrite that activity so that
Yeah.
it fits to what we're teaching. That kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, I could have just, stuck with my lesson and
Yeah.
just been fine, so what is the value add? Oh, well, no, like, now you can go ahead and just change the grade level. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
but still it's not standards aligned.
Yeah.
So, those things. But yeah, so I think that's very important. And I think that is sound advice. And that's going to be a great soundbite that I will definitely cut and share, because I think it's just some really sage advice that you
Yeah.
just gave there, And so thank you so much for sharing that. So Alex, before we start wrapping up, now that we're kind of winding down on the show, I just want to ask you, and maybe, I don't want to say short term, maybe 3 to 5 years from now, what is your vision for Judie AI as you continue to, be involved within the education space and the foreseeable growth of Judie AI? What do you envision?
Yeah. I think I hope to, in the short term, we are very focused on K-12 and early college, but one of the things that's been interesting to me is, when a student buys, or rather, let's say a parent buys a subscription to Judie for their child, we also give access to the parent, and it's interesting to see the parents use the account. I remember months ago we were talking to an investor, and he made an account, and I would see usage on his account. And so I came to him and I asked him, I said, like, do you have a child that's learning? Something? No, I use it to learn quantum mechanics. Like, and I think, like, a lot of people take for granted that it's not just kids trying to learn. Like, you can really learn anything at any stage of your life. And I would like to kind of expand, into that. Like, education is, a market where everybody's a stakeholder. Everyone's always learning, or at least they should be. And I would really love to kind of expand beyond just traditional learning into kind of taking away the limits to learning for everybody. Um,
Yeah.
it's like, for me, I'll say from my experience, I had a lot of educational experience and not a lot of business experience initially. Like running an actual company and having employees and having an office. And I, believe it or not, I learned, use the AI a lot to learn and to kind of buttress the support from my investors and from my mentors. And I'm able to learn something from Judie every single day. That's actually, I think, company policy is, every employee that works for us has to talk to Judie at least once a day and learn something. Like, and so that would be, if I could have a tagline, take away any limits to learning for everybody.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Sign me up. Do you guys need a podcaster? Do you guys need, the
Yeah.
Judie AI podcast? You let me know. Sign me up. I will talk to Judie all day, every day. But you know what? I love that, Alex. I love just that vision. Honestly, I'm very much, I guess, maybe identify myself a little bit with you. I am a multi-passionate creative. I love to have my fingers and toes in everything and learn as much as I can about everything. And, I love that story of, how a parent can, buy this tool, whether it's a monthly or the yearly rate, but still the parent
Yeah.
has access to it. The parent can continue to learn. And I think for myself, that is so important that many times, as adults, whether you're a parent or not a parent or just living the adult life, many times, you get so bogged down with life and things happen, you have your job, but that sometimes we forget, that we can still learn, that we can still pursue our passion, whether it's on the side, and have one conversation with Judie a day to just continue to reignite that passion or to continue to learn. But like you mentioned, having that additional support, learning a new skill and
Yeah.
knowing that along the way you've got your co-pilot in that sense, Judie, it's like, hey, can you help me understand this? Or, can you help me come up with this plan or this script,
Mhm.
whatever it is, and just to continue to pursue and follow that passion, or just to continue to level up, to a new skill, whatever the
Yeah.
case is. And the way that you have this, making it so accessible, not only for the student to learn, but for the parent. I absolutely love it. This is great. Alex, I mean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Before we go, though, also, I did put the link in here for the pricing page for Judie. So I know here you've got, there's a free starter. It says everything you need to get started, 10
Mhm.
free messages a day. That's free content. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you've got a monthly and a yearly subscription. That's a regular for the regular plan, which includes the all starter plan features, unlimited messages, AI study plan generator, and college admissions, and then of course the enterprise. So tell us a little bit about that middle tier, that regular plan, because I love what you're describing there. But as far as all starter plan features,
Mhm.
what exactly would we get with that subscription?
Absolutely. So I think to start, I wanted to use AI to generate free content that's not paywalled. You don't have to sign in, or anything like that. And so right now on our site, if you click on Learn at the top, we have thousands and thousands of articles of free content, that came out of our system, that came out of our content curation. um, you know, Moving from the starter plan to the regular plan, we really wanted to make it an all-in-one kind of educational solution. Where if you need structure, if you need a tutor, if you need someone to quiz you, if you need someone to hold your hand and kind of be your I guess mental coach, if you will, like in your learning journey, that's what the regular plan would give you. And I think piggybacking off of what you just said, like I don't want anybody to ever feel like their back's against the wall in education, and that's what the regular plan will do for you. It'll be your friend, keep you there from falling. When you make mistakes, Judie will be there to help. So
I love that. Alex, man, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for allowing us a little, just a glimpse at your world, the way that you came up with Judie, that story, the work that you're doing, the influence from your father, your passion that you have, like you mentioned, for that nobody should feel that they have their back against the wall when it comes to education, the accessibility, and of course the free content that you're giving here. So for all you teachers that love free 99, you can check it out here at learn.judie.io. The
yeah,
link will be, obviously you can go to the link that'll be in the show notes as well, but you can check it out here as well. So it's learn.judie.io, where you can go ahead and check out the free study guides, where you can definitely go and unleash your potential in education. So Alex, again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much again for sharing your heart, your vision, and your mission with us this evening. But before we go, Alex, hopefully you did get a little look at the calendar invite that I sent and the last three questions that we always wrap up with.
yeah.
So here we go. Right. So as we know, or actually, I should say, as you know, Superman's greatest weakness was kryptonite. So I want to ask you, in the current state of I would like to ask you, what is your current AI kryptonite?
I would probably say hallucinations. Piggybacking off what I said before, I think that's our biggest struggle is helping teachers trust this thing, which to them they don't really understand. Like a calculator, you can understand it; it does math. But if you ask somebody how it works, they probably couldn't tell you. And I think because these things are so lifelike, like our the schools that we work with, we find like people don't refer to Judie as it, which you really should, because it's programmed, right? They refer to it as she, and they say thank you and say sorry and ask it how it's doing. And so kind of, like if you're going to learn from something, you kind of have to trust it. And so kind of that would be kind of the AI kryptonite. I think a lot of players in the space are very loud and maybe overpromised, and we try and do the opposite and be very forthcoming. I think something important there, and again, like another piece of advice I would say for AI CEOs in this space is there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. You don't always have to be an answer. And, when I look at ChatGPT as an educator, that is one of its biggest flaws, is it doesn't say, I don't know. A lot of people ask us, how do you have no hallucinations? Well, if Judie doesn't know something, she does what a human would do, or what a human hopefully should do is say, I don't know. And so that would be our kryptonite, is getting teachers and then our stakeholders to see that.
Excellent. I love it. Great answer. All right. Question number 2, Alex, is if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
I would probably say challenge yourself. I think, like, I just moved to Los Angeles, and I see it's kind of sad to me, I think, to see the state of post-COVID America, without getting too nihilistic. Like, I see a lot of people not challenging themselves and just kind of trying to do enough. And I think if that would be a message that I would get out there. I'm fortunate enough to work with some rock stars that challenge themselves every day. And I think if more people did that, we'd be in a much better spot, like, so that would be, I think, don't limit yourself.
Excellent. I can see that. Like you said, don't limit yourself, challenge yourself. I love that. That'd definitely be a great billboard.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, question number 3. Aside from work, obviously the work that you've been doing through Judie, and, I want to ask you, is there a hobby or favorite activity that you wish one day you can turn into a full-time profession?
Yes. I think my passion, which I've kind of had to give up a little bit for Judie, is I love to dive. I'm a master scuba diver, a dive master. I've logged well more than 1,000 dives in my life, and that's something I would love to get back to. Like, so we'll see if AI replaces me, then I can maybe get to that. But yeah, that was actually during COVID. That was one of the things. I could go down to the beach, because there's no COVID in the ocean. Right? When you're down there, like, that would be what I would turn into a career if I really could.
Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. That is great, Alex. Well, thank you again so much for everything that you shared, Alex. This was a wonderful, very insightful conversation. Definitely a lot of great sound bites from here, a lot of great advice, not only for educators, as of course, they're navigating the AI space, but also for a lot of startups and founders that are out there too, as well. Just being able to see both sides of that today through you and what you shared. I applaud the work that you're doing through Judie, and I definitely wish you the best and your continued success as you again also navigate these waters and continue to grow and bring your mission and vision to a school or a course or even to an adult nearby too as well. So keep doing what you're doing, my friend. And as always, once you are a guest on My EdTech Life, you always have an open invite. So if there's any huge major news for Judie AI, the platform, in the near future, you're always more than welcome to come back to the show and share that with us. We would absolutely love to have you back. So thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Fonz. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we're talking again soon.
Excellent. Perfect. And for all our audience members, those of you that are caught us live today or will be checking this out on the replay, as always, thank you so much for making My EdTech Life what it is today. We appreciate all the likes, the shares, the follows, the reviews. Please go visit our YouTube channel, guys. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers on that. But please make sure that if you want to check out this amazing episode and the other 234 wonderful jam-packed episodes, please make sure you visit our website at myedtech.life, myedtech.life, where again, you can check out some amazing conversations, learn from educators, founders, creators, practitioners that you can take some knowledge nuggets from and sprinkle them onto what you are already doing great. So thank you guys for that. And if you'd love to support our mission, please visit our merch store, guys. Get yourself a cap, sweater, a t-shirt. All of the proceeds go back to the show so we can continue to bring you some amazing content week in and week out, my friends. So, again, thank you all for all of your support. And, my friends, don't forget, until next time, stay techie.